Clara loved the Whispering Woods. From her childhood, its verdant embrace felt like home. She knew every path, every ancient oak, every sun-dappled clearing. The forest was her sanctuary, a place of peace and wonder. She would spend hours exploring its depths, her laughter echoing through the silent trees.
The other villagers spoke of the woods with reverence and fear. They whispered of ancient magic and things unseen, but I knew only its beauty, its tranquility, its comforting embrace. The whispering leaves held no fear for me, only whispered secrets and gentle lullabies.
The village of Oakhaven nestled at the edge of the Whispering Woods. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, where the traditions of old were not just remembered but lived every day. Its inhabitants lived by an unspoken rule, a pact passed down through generations. This rule was more than just a guideline, it was a way of life, a protective measure against the unknown. Never stay in the forest after sunset. This was the warning whispered to every child, the cautionary tale told at every gathering. When shadows grew long and the sun dipped below the horizon, it was time to return. The villagers would hurry back to the safety of their homes, casting wary glances at the encroaching darkness. The forest, they said, belonged to the night. It was a realm where the ordinary laws of nature seemed to bend, where the familiar became strange and the safe became perilous.
Clara's grandmother, her eyes filled with ancient wisdom, would recount tales of those who dared to disobey. She spoke of brave souls who ventured too far, too late, and never returned. Their stories, tinged with sorrow and regret, spoke of disappearances, of strange lights, of disembodied cries echoing through the night. These tales were not just stories but warnings, etched into the very fabric of village life. The forest, they cautioned, held secrets best left undisturbed. It was a place where the past lingered, where the whispers of the old world could still be heard if one listened closely.
Yeah, it's true. The elders always said that the forest was alive, that it had a will of its own. The forest after dark is no place for anyone. It's not just the wild animals or the treacherous paths. It's something deeper, something that feels almost sentient. Best to heed the warnings. Those who ignored them did so at their own peril, and the village had long learned to respect the boundaries set by the Whispering Woods.
One warm summer evening, Clara lingered too long in her beloved woods. Lost in her explorations, she didn't notice the time slipping away. The sun, a fiery ball of orange, began its descent, casting long shadows that danced and stretched like phantoms.
A shiver ran down my spine, a sudden chill in the air. The forest around me seemed to hold its breath, the once familiar sounds muted and distant. The light, fading fast, took on an eerie, otherworldly quality. I finally realized my mistake. I had stayed past the forbidden hour.
As darkness descended, the Whispering Woods transformed. The once gentle trees loomed menacingly, their branches twisting and contorting like skeletal fingers reaching for her. The rustling leaves, once a soothing melody, now sounded like whispered threats. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced Clara's heart.
The air grew heavy, thick with an unnatural silence. The forest, once alive with the sounds of birdsong and rustling leaves, now held its breath, as if waiting, watching. Each step I took seemed to echo endlessly through the silent woods, amplifying my growing terror.
Then she heard it. A soft, mournful sobbing carried on the wind. It was a sound of pure sorrow, filled with a grief so profound that it chilled Clara to the bone. She had never heard anything like it before, a cry that seemed to come from the very depths of despair.
What is that?
She stopped, her heart pounding in her chest, and strained to listen. The forest around her seemed to hold its breath, as if it too was waiting for the next sound. The sound seemed to be coming from deep within the forest, beckoning her forward. It was as if the trees themselves were whispering secrets, urging her to uncover the source of the sorrowful cries.
I shouldn't go, but what if someone needs help?
Clara, torn between fear and an unexplainable pull, hesitated. She knew the stories of the forest, tales of spirits and lost souls that wandered among the trees. Her instinct screamed at her to run, to flee back to the safety of the village. But something in the sobbing, a note of desperation, held her in place. But the sobbing, filled with such palpable despair, held her captive, urging her down a path she knew she shouldn't follow. She took a tentative step forward, her breath hitching in her throat. The forest seemed to close in around her, the shadows deepening with each step she took. Clara's mind raced with questions. Who was crying? Why were they so sad? And why did she feel this overwhelming need to find them? She knew she was venturing into the unknown, but something deep inside her pushed her onward. The sobbing grew louder, more insistent, and Clara felt a chill run down her spine. She was getting closer, but to what she did not know. Through the tangled undergrowth and gnarled trees, Clara followed the sound of weeping. The forest floor, littered with decaying leaves and fallen branches, seemed to whisper warnings beneath her feet. But still she pressed on, drawn deeper into the heart of the weeping woods.
I have to know. Who is crying like this?
And then she saw her. Bathed in pale moonlight beneath the twisted branches of an ancient oak stood a woman. Her long white hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall, and her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Clara, her breath catching in her throat, had stumbled upon the source of the heartbreaking cries. As Clara approached, the woman slowly turned. Her face, pale and drawn, was etched with an immeasurable sadness. Her eyes, pools of shimmering silver, seemed to pierce Clara's soul, reflecting a depth of sorrow that transcended words.
Gasp. What are you?
Clara felt a chill run down her spine, an instinctive understanding that she was in the presence of something ancient and powerful. The forest itself seemed to press in around iron bars. The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. Panic surged through her, a frantic, desperate need to escape this place, but the forest held her fast, its grip inescapable. The woman, her voice a low, mournful whisper, spoke.
This forest, it remembers. It holds on to the pain, the sorrow, the regrets of all who wander here.
Her voice, filled with an echo of forgotten ages, seemed to resonate deep within Clara's bones.
Whispering, I can't move.
Leave this place. Leave, child, and never return. The forest claims all who linger too long in its embrace. It will not let you go.
Her words hung in the air, a chilling prophecy that seemed to seal Clara's fate. Clara tried to run. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing like a drum in the eerie silence of the forest. She could feel the cold, damp air filling her lungs, making it harder to breathe with every step she took. The trees seemed to close in around her, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands, trying to pull her back into the darkness. She thrashed against the invisible bonds that held her captive, her movements growing more frantic with each passing second. It felt as though the very air around her had solidified, forming an unbreakable barrier that she couldn't escape. Her mind raced, searching for a way out, but the forest seemed to mock her efforts, its shadows dancing menacingly in the corners of her vision. But it was no use. The forest had her now, its grip unyielding. The roots beneath her feet seemed to twist and writhe, tangling around her ankles and pulling her deeper into the earth. The more she struggled, the tighter their hold became, as if the forest itself was alive and determined to keep her within its grasp.
Struggling. No! Let me go! Clara's voice echoed through the trees, a desperate plea that seemed to fall on deaf ears. Her cries were swallowed by the darkness, leaving her feeling more isolated and helpless than ever before.
The woman, her face etched with a profound sadness, reached out a hand. Her eyes, filled with a sorrow that seemed to span centuries, locked onto Clara's. There was a moment of connection, a fleeting instant where Clara felt the weight of the woman's pain and loss. Her touch sent a jolt of icy fear through Clara's veins, a cold that seemed to seep into her very soul. It was as if the woman's sorrow had become a tangible force, wrapping around Clara and pulling her into the depths of despair. Then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. The woman's hand slipped away, leaving Clara feeling more alone than ever.
Fading. Please, help! Clara's voice was barely a whisper now, a faint echo that seemed to be carried away by the wind. She could feel her strength fading, her will to fight slipping away with each passing moment.
The woman vanished. The moonlight disappeared, casting the forest into an impenetrable darkness. The once familiar path was now a maze of shadows, each one more foreboding than the last. And the forest fell silent. Clara was gone, swallowed by the darkness. The villagers, searching through the night, found no trace of her. The whispering woods had claimed another soul, its silence unbroken save for the mournful whisper of the wind. The legend of the forest grew that night, a tale of sorrow and loss that would be whispered among the villagers for generations to come. The forest, with its ancient secrets and unyielding grip, remained a place of fear and mystery, a reminder of the souls it had taken and the darkness that lay within. They say that on the quietest nights, when the moon is full and the wind whispers through the trees, you can still hear her, a soft, mournful sobbing carried on the breeze, echoing through the silent woods. A reminder to those who dare to venture into the whispering woods after dark that some secrets are best left undisturbed. The forest, they say, remembers, and it weeps